What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to be predicting who will be the champions in the UFC by the end of the year. As you can see here on your screen, I got the UFC rankings here up. We're going to go through every single division, starting off with the women's strawweight division here, and we are going to make our way up. So, first things first, women's strawweight, we got Zhang Weili. Now, this could potentially be interesting, but the thing is, I don't see anybody here who can really pose that much of a threat to Zhang Weili, and I'll explain why. Carla Esparza just got dominated by Zhang Weili. Rose Namajunas, yes, she did beat Zhang Weili twice, but I don't even know if Rose is fighting anymore. Not only that, but I don't know if Rose is in the right state of mind to be fighting. So, in my opinion, I don't think that right now she beat Zhang Weili. Yao Xiaonan, Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, none of these girls, are going to be able to compete with Zhang Weili, in my opinion. And that's why I think by the end of this year, Zhang Weili is going to remain the women's strawweight champion. Next up here, we got women's flyweight. Alexa Grasso is the current women's flyweight champion. Of course, she defeated Valentina Shevchenko to win the belt. If you want to know my opinion, I think that Valentina will win in the rematch. I believe that she will understand that there are girls who are on her level, and I wonder if complacency was an issue. I'm not saying it was, but I'm just wondering if it was a potential issue for her, because we don't really know. She hasn't said a whole lot following her loss, so I'm not 100% sure. But Alexa Grasso was getting the better of Valentina on the feet, but let's be honest, Valentina was getting the better of the grappling exchanges, and I think that Valentina will come in with a more wrestle-heavy game plan in the rematch and defeat her. And that's why I'm going to predict Valentina Shevchenko to be champion by the end of the year. Last up for the women's division, we have the women's bantamweight division where Amanda Nunes is the current champion. Let's just call a spade a spade. Nobody in this division is beating Amanda Nunes. Yes, she had that one slip up against Juliana Pena. Then she proceeded to dominate Juliana Pena and make her look like an absolute amateur. And I don't even really need to go down the list, but this is why I believe that Amanda Nunes will be the champion by the end of the year. She just is too dominant. She's just too skilled compared to these other girls. Next up, we got the men's flyweight division with Brandon Moreno is the current champ, who recently defeated Davison Figueiredo. And obviously, they're not going to fight each other for a fifth time. It's just not going to happen. But he is going to fight Alexandra Pantoja. That could potentially be an interesting fight. If Pantoja is able to get that fight down to the ground, he could cause Moreno some real issues. However, Brandon Moreno is also a very high-level grappler in his own right. And obviously, Brandon Moreno defeated Kai Kara-France, Brandon Royval, Davison Figueiredo twice. Yes, he does have a loss to Alexandra Pantoja, so potentially Pantoja can do something. But ultimately, I think Moreno's progressed to such a level now that I think he's going to beat Pantoja in the rematch. And I believe that he's going to remain champion until the end of the year. Next up, for the men's bantamweight division, we have Aljamain Sterling, the man who recently defeated Henry Cejudo by controversial split decision. I thought that Sterling did do enough to win the fight. I believe that he outpointed Cejudo in 3 of the 5 rounds to win 48-47. But he's also got wins, over the likes of Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan. I'm trying to think of who else on this list has he beaten? He beat Pedro Munoz. There is some good wins on his resume here, for sure. I believe that who is going to be Aljamain Sterling's next fight is going to be Sean O'Malley. I expect him to absolutely defeat Sean O'Malley. He's going to take down Sean O'Malley and he's going to submit him with ease. And I believe that that'll probably be Aljamain Sterling's last fight of the year. And I believe that he will be the champion at the end of 2023. Next up, featherweight, Alexander Volkanovski. He's been a dominant champion thus far. Of course, he recently tried to defeat Islam Makhachev in a very close fight where either guy could have won. Honestly, I've scored the fight recently. I so slightly gave it to Volkanovski, but I can watch that fight again tomorrow and say that Islam won the fight. You know what I mean? It was a very close fight. But his next fight's going to be up against Yair Rodriguez at UFC 290, I believe. And there could be some interesting things there from Yair. Yair could potentially catch Volkanovski with a high kick, knock him out maybe, or maybe he might be able to catch him in a submission, but I doubt that one because Islam and Brian Ortega were able to take down Volkanovski, and there was just nothing there. There was nothing that could be done to Volkanovski. So I don't think that Yair's going to submit him. But Yair could potentially knock him out with a head kick or something crazy as Volkanovski enters range with that short stature. You never know what can happen to fight. But I think Volkanovski's going to win. And this is one of my more confident picks where I believe that Alexander Volkanovski will be UFC featherweight champion by the end of 2023. All right, next up we got the lightweight division here, where Islam Makhachev is the current lightweight champion. Of course, like I just mentioned, he of course recently defeated Alexander Volkanovski in a very, very close decision win. And it kind of puts Islam in an interesting spot. Who does he fight now? Because he beat Charles Oliveira, and his next highest ranked opponent win, I believe, was against Arman Tsarukyan, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's correct. And so now what does Islam do? Islam is going to be, I don't know who he's taking on next. It was going to be Beneil Dariush, and he seemed like the rightful number one contender, but now Beneil's fighting Charles. So I think Islam's fighting the winner of this fight. And either way, I do see Islam beating both Charles and Beneil, but neither fight is easy. Yes, I understand that Islam just recently defeated Charles Oliveira. However, Charles Oliveira came in with just terrible game plans, terrible strategy. It was just not exactly a good fight from Charles Oliveira. That was a bad performance from him. But Charles on a good night, where Charles is able to compete to the best of his ability, I believe he absolutely could beat Islam Makhachev. But if we're going to be honest here, I don't see any of these guys right now defeating Islam Makhachev. And I believe that Islam Makhachev will still be the UFC lightweight champion by the end of 2023. Moving on here to the welterweight division. This is a division where I believe a champion could be changing hands. And this is no disrespect to Leon Edwards, but let's be honest. He is not on the level of some of these guys, in my opinion. He's a fantastic striker, but he is not that level grappler. Yes, he did defend a lot of Usman's takedown attempts, but Usman's wrestling seems to have decreased in terms of ability. And I don't want to disrespect Usman, but let's be honest as well with the fact that Leon Edwards constantly gave up his back to Kamaru, and Kamaru has 0 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He just never took the opportunity to take Leon Edwards back. And I believe that if Kamaru Usman even had the ability to take a fighter's back, he would have won that third fight, even, against Leon Edwards, in my opinion. And so his next fight seemingly is going to be against Colby Covington. Colby's going to beat him. I think he's going to drown him with constant wrestling pressure, a constant pace that Leon's not going to be able to keep up with, and I think that Colby will eventually win a decision. And I believe Colby Covington will be the UFC welterweight champion at the end of the year. Next up for middleweights, we have Israel Adesanya, the current champion. Now, this is kind of interesting, but I don't see this title changing hands at all. Dricus Du Plessis is going to be taking on Robert Whittaker, which I don't know if that's the number one contender match or not. I'm not 100% sure. But Izzy defeated Alex Pereira. He defeated Marvin Vettori. He defeated Robert Whittaker twice. He defeated Jared Cannonier. He defeated Paulo Costa. He defeated Derek Brunson. I don't see any of these guys getting another crack on, besides maybe Robert Whittaker. Other than that, none of these guys are going to be fighting Izzy again. I think that right now there is not a fighter in that middleweight division who will defeat Israel Adesanya, who is not named Alex Pereira. But Alex Pereira is not making 185 again. So I believe at the end of 2023, Israel Adesanya will remain the UFC middleweight champion. Moving on to the light heavyweight division, we got Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill. And Jamal Hill's an interesting case because he's not necessarily the most skilled fighter in this division. It's not even close, in my opinion. I believe that he's got good power. I believe he's got some pretty decent striking. But other than that, he's shown decent takedown defense. But Glover Teixeira isn't necessarily known to be the best wrestler. But there are fighters who I believe are better wrestlers than him. For example, Magomed Ankalaev, I believe, is a better wrestler, and I think he absolutely defeats Jamal Hill. I think that a Yuri Prochazka fight could potentially be interesting, but I think Jamal Hill does beat Yuri. Jan Blachowicz, I believe, does defeat Jamal. Alexander Rakic, again, I do believe defeats Jamal, but that one is a bit dicey. Johnny Walker, he's already fought. Nikita Krylov, I believe, will defeat Jamal Hill. I think that there's guys in here that will definitely defeat Jamal. And that's not to disrespect Jamal Hill. He's a good fighter, but he's just not on the level of some of these guys. But it looks like his next fight will be against Yuri Prochazka, and that's probably going to be towards the end of the year, and I think Jamal Hill's going to win. If this was if we were in January right now, and this Yuri fight was going to happen in May, then I believe that by the end of the year, the title would switch hands. However, because of when this fight could potentially be happening, I think Jamal Hill's going to defeat Yuri, and I believe by the end of 2023, Jamal Hill will be champion. However, if he was to fight someone else, if he's going to fight Magomed Ankalaev or Jan Blachowicz, one of these guys are going to defeat him, and those guys will be champion. But based off what we know when it comes to the whole, Yuri Prochazka situation, I'm going to say Jamal Hill's champion by the end of 2023. And here we are with the last division I'm going to look at today, Jon Jones. Here we are with the heavyweight division where Jon Jones is the current champion. Now, this is interesting. So he obviously defeated Cyril Gane and hasn't fought any other heavyweights. Okay, fair enough. So now we need to figure out who he's going to be fighting next. And Stipe is most likely not going to happen. Stipe is very hard to negotiate with. And I don't believe he's going to be fighting Stipe. If he fights Stipe, Jones will win. But his other test could be Sergey Pavlovich. I do believe he does defeat Sergey as of this moment, but that's really just a dependable. That's a variant because of his takedown defense. We don't know where Sergey Pavlovich's takedown defense is potentially at right now, so I could definitely see a scenario where Sergey Pavlovich could stuff the takedowns and just outbox Jon. You never know what's going to happen. But as of this moment stands, depending on when Jon Jones fights next, I believe he'll be fighting probably like October, November, somewhere in there. And depending on who he fights, he might just retire. But with all this being said, I believe by the end of the year, Jon Jones will remain UFC heavyweight champion. And guys, these are my thoughts. Yes, there are a lot of and stills. There are a lot of and stills. And it's just because of the way a lot of the timings are going to work in some of these divisions. And other ones are simply just, the fighters are just too skilled. And there's not necessarily another challenger that could defeat these champions right now. But this is all just my thoughts. This is all just speculation. Let me know who you guys think the champions will be by the end of 2023. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you have any other video suggestions, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more. Peace!